What's wrong?
Nothing.
Sorry.
National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1. From out of the night comes two men with enough courage, enough brains.
What you got, Irv?
Dandruff, seborrhea, maybe just dry, itchy scalp.
Have you tried this? I use it.
Head and shoulders?
Enough bullets.
I know what you're thinking, punk. Did he fire 173 times or 174?
To get the job done.
Hey, Scotty! Can you get this machine away? I'm giving it all she's got, Captain. If I push it any harder, the whole thing will blow. New
Line Cinema presents the cop movie to end all cop movies. Emilio Estevez,
Give me a name. Are your parents supposed to do that?
Sam Jackson,
Hey, Sarge, it's tingling.
That means it's working.
Kathy Ireland,
Do you sleep in the nude? Only when I'm naked.
William Shatner,
They know never to screw with me.
Tim Curry,
That's good.
and John Lovitz.
Is this the big checkout? Come on, level with me.
It's not bad. You'll be fine. You'll be back on your feet in no time.
National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1.
So, this is Mr. Screw with your brain, eat your spleen, wear your flesh as a hairnet leecher, huh? Look who's Mr. Scaredy Pants now. I just gotta ask, what does human flesh taste like?
Chicken.
See it before they make the sequel.
So, as the title indicates, this is basically spoofing the first three Lethal Weapon films. We also have reference spoofs to Basic Instinct, Die Hard, Dirty Harry, Rambo, Silence of the Lambs, Wayne's World, 48 Hours, Chips, pretty much buddy cop movies in general. You got Emilio Estevez and Samuel L. Jackson starring as the Merton Riggs of this movie, kind of. Instead of in this movie, they're Sergeant Jack Colt and Sergeant Wes Luger. You also see Kathy Ireland in there, Tim Curry, William Shatner, John Lovitz, Dennis Leary's also in the movie. A lot of names in this movie you'll see here, including you see the cameo by James Doohan as Scotty in there, but also you have Eric Estrada, Larry Wilcox, Corey Feldman, Whoopi Goldberg, Paul Gleason, Phil Hartman, Richard Mole, J.T. Walsh, Bruce Mahler, Robert Shea, Charles Napier. Bruce Willis appears as John McClane in a cameo. Denise Richards is in here. Alice Beasley from Moonlighting and Recess. Dr. Joyce Brothers, Christopher Lambert, Charlie Sheen. Just an entire cast of people, a good ensemble cast in this movie, and some pretty good cameos in here. And honestly, in terms of these spoof comedies, not a whole lot of them were really as funny as something like the Naked Gun movies or the Hot Shot movies. This is one of the few examples of this is one of the first of the examples where you actually had something that actually was pretty funny overall. Like, I remember watching this movie on video back in the 2000s, never really knowing anything about it, and I just watched it because it's a parody film, like Naked Gun films and the Scary Movie films. And I was pleasantly surprised by it. I was pleasantly surprised on how much I was laughing at this movie. I mean, it's a really funny movie. A very silly movie, a very over-the-top movie, but it's very funny. And you see a lot of the funnier jokes in the trailer. Like, they don't spoil a lot of them. They spoil some of the jokes, but there are some jokes that are not in this trailer that actually are legitimately funny. And I mean, really, this is a pretty funny movie. Like, I was watching this, and I was just like, this is actually pretty good. Like, I don't see that many good spoof movies outside of the Naked Gun films, or the Scary Movie films, or the Hot Shots films, or the Airplane, or just for examples. But this movie really made me laugh the first time I watched it, and every time I watch it, I still find a lot to really laugh about. It is very silly. The jokes may not be as clever as something like the Naked Gun movies or any of the other Zucker Brothers movies, but it's still a really funny movie. It's still a really funny film overall. I really enjoy it a lot. If you haven't seen it and you want to see a pretty funny spoof movie, this definitely takes the cake. It's a very good, funny film. I'd say definitely check it out. Loaded Weapon 1, very funny film. So, With that said, on to the next movie, and that is Richard Gere and Jodie Foster in Summersby.
Welcome home, Jack. Thank the Lord for bringing you back. 6 years is a long time without any word.
She knew his face.
I'll say hello to your daddy, son.
His touch. His voice.
I'll be damned. Foot's 2 sizes smaller now.
You are not my husband.
Forever.
Think I am. Do you love me?
You're making me crazy.
Who are you? Tell me who you are. I'm gonna burn this place down. You've known all along, haven't you? Why don't you take him into your house, into your bed?
John Robert Summersby, we have a warrant for your arrest. The murder of Mr. Charles Copeland.
If you tell them who you are, then they'll have to let you go.
You could win your life, sir.
I'm a name. I don't think I have a life.
You are not Jack Summersby, so why do you keep going on pretending that you are?
How do you know I'm not?
I know because...
How do you know?
I know because I never loved him the way that I love you.
Richard Gere, Jodie Foster, Summersby.
Here's another movie that has a pretty strong cast involved. You have Richard Gere, Jodie Foster, but you also see Bill Pullman in there, James Earl Jones, Frankie Faison is in this as well, Arlie Ermey's in this, Maury Chaykin, some very notable names here. And you have something pretty interesting here. This director is John Emile, who also did films such as Copycat, The Man Who Knew Too Little, Entrapment, The Core. I mean, honestly, probably his best film, quite honestly, is Entrapment, but even that's just kind of like, it's not a great movie, but it's still a fun action movie overall with Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones. And with this movie here, I could see the potential. There's a interesting mystery here, but the script doesn't really want that to be the focus of the movie, honestly. I think the focus of the film wants to be specifically on the relationship between Richard Gere and Jodie Foster, which it works pretty well. I mean, their performances are fine in this movie. I just don't think the mystery aspect of this is all that exciting. I don't think the story really is that inventive or anything exciting, and the film ends pretty mediocrely. Like, they're trying to force somewhat of a happy ending to you, but it just didn't work for me. It's a movie that just feels like it's... I've seen way too many shows and movies try to do this similar story, and they fail miserably. One of the most notable examples is the Principal and the Pauper episode of The Simpsons, where, of course, it's revealed in that episode that Seymour Skinner is actually not who he says he is, and this other guy is actually the real Seymour Skinner, and it's widely considered to be the episode of The Simpsons where the peak of the series started to fall off. I still consider it one of the worst episodes of the series, and I love The Simpsons a lot, but that to me is still one of the worst episodes the show has ever done. And I've seen that happen so many times. I've seen this story done so many times. Family Guy's also done it once. But that was mostly in the final minutes of an episode. It's been something that's been done over and over again. I think the only one that's actually done the story really well was Mad Men. I think they did a pretty good job of using that similar storyline and actually doing it and putting it to good use for the character of Don Draper. If you haven't seen you haven't seen what happens. I'm not going to spoil it, but I guess I kind of spoiled it a little bit, but if you haven't seen it, you should be watching Mad Men anyway. It's a fantastic show. But as far as this movie goes, it's okay. It's nothing really all that spectacular. I think what keeps it afloat are the performances by Foster and Gere. I think they work off each other really well. Their chemistry is so good, but the rest of the movie itself is just mediocre at best. It's not something I'd watch again, but I am glad I saw it at least once, so... That's my thoughts on Summersby. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is The Vanishing.
What if, on the best of days, in the most innocent of places.
Till death do us part.
Till death do us part. The one person you loved most suddenly disappeared. How long would you search?
He must have loved her very much.
I do admire his perseverance.
I pretend I have a choice. I have the power either to let her go on living wherever she is happy and never know anything about what happened to her, or she can be dead and I get to find out everything. How far would you go? I just want to know what happened to Diane, and I'm prepared to do anything to find out. How much would you risk?
Hello, Jeff. I'm the man you're looking for. I'm Barney.
Go to the police. You can't do this on your own.
If anything happens to me, or if you speak to anyone, you'll never know what happened.
I swear to God, I wish she were dead. I don't know what it is like to not know. Why did you make contact with me?
Where you search for Diane, such a worthy opponent, kindred spirit.
She's gone, Jeff. You may never find out how or why. You just have to learn to accept that.
You don't care anymore if she's alive or dead. You're just afraid that without the search, you won't know who you are.
Please, I just want to know.
Drink, and you will experience exactly what she experienced.
So this is actually a remake of a French-Dutch film released in 1988 with this actual same director, George Slicer, who did this version. So you would think that if you got the same director who did the original version, he would do just as good of a job with the remake version of it. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and despite a strong cast in this movie that includes people like Jeff Bridges, Kiefer Sutherland, Sandra Bullock, Nancy Travis, the movie itself is pretty bad. I mean, it's a movie that really misses the mark of what made the original movie so special, and it's often been considered one of the worst remakes ever made, and you can pretty much see why. It's a movie that takes a really good story, a really well done story, and just makes it a safe and marketable thriller so teenagers can go see it on opening weekend just to get laid. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, it's a movie that's not all that exciting. It's a movie that has a really lackluster performance by Jeff Bridges. I cannot believe that accent he has in this movie, and it's I think Roger Ebert says it best. They turn it into a slasher movie at the end with a very cheap joke and a very lousy ending. I mean, there's nothing exciting about this movie whatsoever. There's nothing really enjoyable about this movie at all. These actors deserve a lot better than this movie here, and it's really a bad movie. It's really one of the worst remakes ever made. It's just such an insult to the original film. They took something that could be very good and very well done, and just completely toned it down, make for a safe and marketable movie that, like I said, teenagers can take their girlfriends to, or maybe the other way around. Teenage girls can take their boyfriends to, so they can if you know what I mean. I mean, that's pretty much what this movie basically exists for. They didn't want to tell a good story. They wanted to make a movie so that teenagers can go out there on Friday night, see it, and then immediately forget about it because there were more important things that happened to them that night. And I mean, this actually may be a bad movie to take a date to. I mean, this is a bad movie. One of the worst remakes ever made. Just an insult to the original film. Just a terrible movie all around. Avoid the vanishing like the plague. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to a much better movie, and that is Disney's Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey.
From Walt Disney Pictures.
I'm gonna miss you so much.
Left Behind.
Shadow is gonna love it in the country.
Have a nice vacation.
And Far From Home. They were determined to find their way back. Now, they've set off on an adventure into an untamed world. Across treacherous mountains. Where danger waits at every turn.
I gotta tell you, domesticated animals wouldn't stand a chance out here.
And the forces of nature will test their ability to survive.
I miss Shadow, Mom.
It will be an incredible journey home.
Maybe that's where they went.
But that would be hundreds of miles.
In the
classic tradition of Walt Disney Entertainment comes Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey.
Unlike The Vanishing, here's a remake that's actually much better than the original film. I mean, the original, The Incredible Journey, which I actually didn't know that this was actually based off of a original Disney movie that was actually, well, not even an original Disney movie, it was actually based off of a novel that came out 2 years prior to this. But believe it or not, this actually was a remake of The Incredible Journey from 1963, which, it's a fine movie for what it is. I mean, it's pretty much what you expect it to be in terms of like a classic family Disney adventure from back in the 60s and back from the 60s. It is fine for what it is, but I really do like that this movie is a vast improvement on the original film. I do like this movie a lot. They actually have the voices of Michael J. Fox, Sally Field, and Don Amici in this as the pets. And usually when you add celebrity voices to this, chance is usually you're just doing it so you can put some names on the poster, and they're not really all that memorable. But, you know, honestly, I'm glad they did it this time. I'm glad they did it because it actually does work here. Like, you can really get into these characters a lot with these voice talents that they have. You have Michael J. Fox as Chance, Shadow is voiced by Amici, and Sally Field is Sassy. And these characters, they do a really good job making these voices appeal to these characters. Like, you can feel it's like you can get more invested in these characters and the situations that they put themselves into here. The cast overall is great. Robert Hayes is in here, Kim Greist as the parents. The kids in here are very good. The adventure aspect is great. The comedy works really well. There's a lot of good emotional and serious moments that are done very well. It is a very good, fun family adventure film, and I think it's honestly one of the best remakes Disney's ever done. It improves on the flaws of the original film and creates this fun adventure that you want to go on, and it works on so many levels. It's a movie that still holds up to this very day. Can't recommend this movie enough. Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. Amazing, amazing film. So, on that note, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie that we have here, and that is The Cemetery Club.
From Touchstone Pictures, they were three friends who thought their best times were behind them.
Guys are going to start hitting them.
Well, it fates, well, it destiny. That's when they made the decision.
Sizes 8 to 14.
To start all over again. Let the games begin. Now, they're proving if life is what you make it, they've got it made.
Who's the looker? You're out of control.
The Cemetery Club, rated PG-13. Starts Friday, February 12th at a theater near you.
This one is one that I haven't seen. I can't really comment on it too much, but judging by these trailers, it doesn't look that bad. It looks like a lighthearted comedy specifically tailored to older females, like in their 40s or 50s. We get a lot of those movies nowadays, stuff like Book Club, Palms, just a couple of those movies to mention. I think this is one of those movies that fits to that specific audience. That's what I want to say. You got some notable actors in here: Ellen Burstyn, Olympia Dukakis, Diane Ladd, Lainey Kazan, Danny Aiello, Christina Ricci's in here, Bernie Casey, Wallace Shawn, Robert Costanzo, Catherine Keener, Jerry Orbach. Just a pretty good cast overall here. I mean, it could be good. I mean, it doesn't look like a terrible movie. But honestly, in terms of these movies, there's only been a couple of them that I've actually seen and actually have kind of liked. Some of the most notable ones include The First Wives Club, which comes out a couple years after this movie did. That's one of those movies. I can't really think of some other movies, but I know there are some other ones. As far as this movie goes, it looks pretty good. It looks like it could be pretty fun. So, I'm not going to rush out to see it anytime soon, but it definitely does look like it could be a lighthearted, enjoyable comedy. That's pretty much all I got for you on this one. That's The Cemetery Club.
Groundhog time.
1,000 people freezing their butts off waiting to worship a rat.
Weatherman Phil Connors is spending the day in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania.
Phil? Ned Ryerson. I did the whistling belly button trick at the high school talent show.
Bing!
Bing!
But Phil's about to find out he's not just stuck in Puxatawney.
Will you be checking out today, Mr. Connors?
Chance of departure today, 100%.
He's stuck in Groundhog Day.
I'm reliving the same day over and over.
Phil?
Ned Ryerson?
Bang!
Do you ever have deja vu, Mrs. Lancaster?
I don't think so, but I could check with the kitchen.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again?
At first, he was a little anxious.
Bill? What?
Will you be checking out today, Mr. Collins?
I'd say the chance of departure is 80%.
But now,
We could do whatever we want.
he's discovering the possibilities
Don't you worry about cholesterol?
Why?
and living life like there's no tomorrow.
Phil Connors!
Ned!
Because there isn't.
I am an immortal. I have been stabbed, shot, burned, frozen, electrocuted. I'm a god.
You're God.
I'm a god. I'm not the god. He's out of his gourd.
But to get what his heart wants most
What are you looking for, Phil? A date for the weekend?
means living this day over again till he gets it right.
Believe it or not, I studied 19th century French poetry.
What a waste of time.
I studied 19th century French poetry.
La fille qui j'aimerais.
You speak French.
Bill Murray, Andy McDowell,
To the groundhog.
I always drink to world peace. Well, what should we drink to?
I like to say a prayer and drink to world peace. Don't drive angry. Don't drive angry. He might be okay. Yes!
Life has a funny way of repeating itself.
What did you do today?
Oh, same old, same old.
So like I said, this is one of my all-time favorite movies, and it is for a number of reasons. For one thing, you've got a great premise to it. The way it's presented is incredibly well done. Credit the screenwriter Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis for the script they put together, combining just enough bits of comedy and drama throughout the film, not overusing them on either account, and it makes for a really enjoyable film. Another thing that makes the movie great is I love how they never give a real explanation on why Phil is going through this. Why is he reliving the same day over and over again? And usually that would be a point of criticism, but in a movie like this, you don't really need the explanation. It's kind of like what I said earlier about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. You don't really need to know how T'Challa died. I like that it makes you think about what could have happened. And in this case, I like the idea that they don't tell you exactly why Phil is going through this. In fact, if I read right, there was a part in the original script where they actually did talk about it, and it was like some kind of like so I'm trying to think of who it was. It was like a psychic who had something to do with it or something like that. It was like some kind of magic, but they never went through it. I can't exactly remember how it went, but I did remember reading that in the DVD brochure that they had for when I got this for the first time on DVD a few years ago, many years ago, I should say. The cast overall here is great. I like Bill Murray in this. This is probably my favorite movie with him in this. But, I mean, Bill Murray usually doesn't make really terrible movies. Even when he's in some really bad movies, he's usually putting his all into it. He usually will pick the right movie, and I won't even sugarcoat it. He's made some really bad movies. I mean, he's one of the reasons why I think the Garfield movies are somewhat enjoyable, because he can make comedy work even in movies that usually would be very, very bad. I mean, not to say that the Garfield movies are great, but he makes those movies somewhat enjoyable. You got Andy McDowell in here. I think she's great in the movie. She comes off originally as the love interest, and I love how as the movie progresses and you learn more about this character, you do feel the chemistry between her and Phil, and I think it works really well here. And Chris Elliott has some really good lines in here. Stephen Tobolowsky as Ned Ryerson is hilarious in here. He's just the perfect example of somebody that we all know, that annoying person that gets on our nerves, and when they're in their line of sight, you have no choice but to persevere. You just gotta try to get away from them as much as you can. If there's any real flaw to the movie, it's not even within the movie itself. It's the fact that this movie takes place in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, but this was not filmed in Punxsutawney. It was shot in Woodstock, Illinois. Even though there's a couple of aerial shots of Pittsburgh in the beginning of the film, you see Three River Stadium and where KDKA is, if you've been to downtown Pittsburgh before. But the only reason why they did it is because the real Gobbler's Knob is like 2 miles away from Punxsutawney, and it's like 80 miles away from downtown Pittsburgh. And I guess they did it because they did it in another town so they can get a bigger scope of the town itself, and it's more of a nitpick that it's not really filmed there. But considering that I've been down there before, because my cousins live around down there, I can kind of see why it's a very, very small town. And judging by this movie, they make this town look a lot bigger than the actual town is. And considering that, yeah, I live in the Western Pennsylvania area, I could tell that this was probably for the best that they did in another town besides the actual Gobbler Snob. But other than that, though, man, Groundhog Day is just a great movie all around. It's the best movie Bill Murray has ever done. He provides both his usual comedy antics and a little preview of the dramatic abilities he become known for stuff like Lost in Translation and Broken Flowers, St. Vincent, and it's just a movie that I watch every single year. I have to make it a plea to watch this movie every single Groundhog Day, just like I do with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles on Thanksgiving. I have to watch it. Then I have to watch stuff like A Christmas Story at Christmas, Christmas Vacation. Like, this is one of those movies that I have to watch every single year around Groundhog Day. It's just, life just doesn't feel right if I don't watch it at least once on Groundhog Day. And I mean, if you haven't seen it already, do yourself a favor, man, and just go out there and see it. You are missing out on one of the great, great movies ever made. I mean, this really is one of the greatest movies ever made. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Groundhog Day, it's a fantastic film. Need I say more about it? So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Marissa Tomei, Christian Slater, and Rosie Perez in Untamed Heart.
Anything wrong?
No.
You don't want to see me anymore? But she's gonna come floating back on his knees. Okay, I don't mind. I miss you. I want you back. I think it's very weird. Too bad, though. He's kind of cute.
Come on, hang out with us.
That's as scared as I've ever been in my whole life.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I wasn't finished.
Don't call him.
She's star party for Star Seed tonight. I wish I may. I wish I might. I just wish I wished it might.
It's Mars. You just wished on a planet.
Why?
He doesn't make sense. I don't make sense. Together we make sense.
Did you hurt yourself?
I wasn't finished.
By the way, I hope you have fun having Tom's Diner in your head for the next couple of weeks, because, yeah, Tom Diners is one of those sticky songs that just, whenever you hear it, it just gets stuck in your head for a while. You'll be doing your job, and all of a sudden you'll start going in your head, going do 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 do. I mean, I like that the trailer actually puts it in there, just like if you were tired of that song, and all of a sudden you watch this trailer, and it's just like it's back in your head again. But that's not really important to the story going on here. Untamed Heart, by the way, is the movie we're talking about. And it's a movie about it's basically a romantic drama where you have this young woman who's unlucky in love, played by Marissa Tomei, and this man who has a heart defect, played by Christian Slater. And usually these movies can be pretty corny. I know Dying Young was one of those movies that tried to do something similar to this, but it was just way too melodramatic, way too sappy on so many levels. But this movie, I think, actually does it the right way. I mean, this movie, I think, is a way better movie than that movie was. This is a really solid film. It's no classic by any means. It's not even that a great movie, but it is a fun, enjoyable romantic drama. I mean, you really do buy into the chemistry between Slater and Tomei. Plus, I mean, you got Rosie Perez. Usually, whenever she's in a movie, she's never given a really bad performance, and she's usually one of the best things about. She's usually very solid in a movie, and this is another really solid performance for her, and I really like her in this. And it's just a sweet movie. It's a sweet movie. Its heart is in the right place. The movie just really feels legitimate. It doesn't feel like it's forcing these emotions on you. They make you earn these emotional moments, and they are done very well. These are done very well. The casting overall is great. It's a movie that just feels like a nice little slice of entertainment. Like, it's a movie that doesn't really have to do too much to be groundbreaking. It just wants to give you something enjoyable, a nice little chick flick to see. This is the type of movie that you go to a movie theater on a weekend and take your girlfriend to see, and they would really enjoy it. I mean, it's a really wonderful film. Very underrated movie, in my opinion. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed by this. If you're looking for a good, solid romantic drama, Untamed Heart does the trick for you. So, that's Untamed Heart. Now, with that said, on to the next movie, and that is Timothy Hutton and Lara Flynn Boyle in the thriller The Temp.
May I help you?
I work here. This is my office.
Oh, Mr. Derns. I'm Chris Bolin.
Oh, yeah. The Temp. Hello. Hey, didn't you tell me you once fooled around with your secretary? I have a temp. Who the hell's that? Quite a temp. You want to call your husband and tell him you're working late?
No.
Chris, I don't get involved with my assistants.
Maybe someday I won't be your assistant.
Someone is leaking marketing strategy to our competitors.
Chris, you can get off now. Ron, how are you?
She's got a hidden agenda, Raj.
Don't we all?
Do you think Roger was murdered?
In case you haven't noticed, we're running out of executives around here. What are you doing?
Come on, you have doubts about her, too.
So it's still me.
Tell me it isn't.
Is there a problem with your temporary?
No, just want to know a little bit about her.
The man tries to get ahead in business and he's ambitious. The woman tries to and she's a slut.
She wants to be my boss.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure about anything.
Peter, can you believe it? They made me a marketing manager.
I got a temp telling me what to do?
Don't you find that you respond to someone who cares desperately about something? Anything?
I'm not selling secret, Charlotte.
Well, what are you doing, Peter? What's going on? You have been acting like an insane...
Someone in this company is trying to destroy me.
For Peter Derns, it's time to wake up.
Stop doing this to me!
And smell the coffee. The Temp.
You have a very active imagination, Peter. I see where it gets you in a lot of trouble.
So here's a movie that I think really didn't know what kind of a tone it wanted to have. First off, you have Tom Holland, who, before this movie, had done films like Child's Play and Fright Night, these horror movies that had a little bit of a comedic edge to it. This was sold as a straight-up serious psychological thriller, but even then, it's a movie that doesn't feel like the studio couldn't agree on what kind of a tone it wanted. They had another ending that they wanted to do, but they said that it was too gruesome for test audiences, and they actually had to push the film back so they can actually shoot a new ending. And they really didn't know what kind of an ending they wanted to do. And it's just like, if you can't figure out what kind of an ending you want to do, and here's another thing you have to remember: they shot the new climax on January 18th, 1993. This movie came out on February 12th. They rushed this ending and got this film out there instead of taking their time with it. And you know that there's a huge problem when your climax is literally being shot a month before your movie is supposed to come out. And it definitely shows on screen here. This is a terrible movie, despite the great actors that it has. I mean, you got Faye Dunaway, Timothy Hutton, Lara Flynn Boyle, Dwight Schultz, Oliver Platt, Steven Weber, Maura Tierney, Lynn Shay. Just a really good cast overall. And for Lara Flynn Boyle, this could have been a really fun role for her. I mean, most people saw her a year prior in Wayne's World, and here she's playing the psychotic killer, this psychotic kind of psychotic killer, and it's just like, okay, maybe this could be fun for her, but even her performance in this movie just really feels like they really had no idea what kind of a tone they wanted to do with this. Did they want to do something that was actually legitimately good, or did they just want to make a stock movie? And because of studio interference, we got a generic stock psychological thriller with a twist that's not really all that good, and it just doesn't work. It's a movie that just really, it's really lackluster on so many levels. I feel like there is a good concept here, but the movie overall is just a big mess, and I think even the people behind it even knew about it. In fact, Timothy Hutton said that this movie he suspected that the studio was influenced by the success of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle the year before and attempted to do something similar to that, but incorporated but even throw in some more dark humor, which is why they got Holland, because, like I said, he did Child's Play and Fright Night, and those movies are horror movies, but they have comedic aspects to it, but those movies were done a whole lot better. This was not. This was a huge clusterfuck of a movie that just... It's a mess on so many levels. It's a movie that you should avoid like the plague. I mean, it's not a very good movie, and even the people who made the film will tell you, yeah, it's not very good. So there you go. That's The Temp. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Michelle Pfeiffer and Dennis Haysbert in Love Field.
Come on, Jackie.
To make sense of her life.
Something's wrong. I think we should go to the funeral.
You are not going anywhere.
Are you going to?
No, we're just going home.
When illusion shatters,
Who is he?
Noreen Haley begins a journey of discovery.
I am her father.
We'd like to talk to you about your wife.
Michelle Pfeiffer, Dennis Haysbert, Love Field, rated PG-13, starts Friday, February 20th.
So Love Field is most notably known for a couple of things. This was actually made in 1990, but Orion Pictures was suffering financial losses and was about to file into bankruptcy, so they didn't even release the film until almost 2.5 years after the movie was even was filmed. And that's something I never really understood about Orion Pictures. Their studio kept afloat because of the 2 Best Picture winners that they had in 90 with Dances with Wolves and then 91 with Silence of the Lambs. And it's baffling how they went out of business so quickly. And it's kind of like what happened with New Line Cinema in the 2000s. I mean, they made the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That one of them won a Best Picture, but that studio completely shut down near the end of the decade for no real reason whatsoever. But that's another subject altogether. But in terms of this movie, it's directed by Jonathan Kaplan, who's done some movies that we talked about before: Immediate Family, Unlawful Entry. He also did Project X, The Accused, and this was one of those movies where it was pretty much an Oscar baitish type film. Michelle Pfeiffer herself got nominated for an Oscar for this. But the movie itself, I think it has some good ideas to it, but the execution just didn't work out so well. It's a movie that tries a little too hard. I think it's trying too hard to figure out what kind of a movie it wants to be. I don't know if it's trying to be something like on the same level as something like Driving Miss Daisy or what. I mean, it just didn't feel like a movie that was... They had a real good idea of what they wanted to do. They just said, get Michelle Pfeiffer, get Jonathan Kaplan, and we'll see if they can make something that'll get us some Academy Award nominations. Well, it did, but it didn't actually win anything. So I don't know. This movie, when I saw it a couple of years ago, I was just kind of like, this isn't bad or anything, because it's not a bad movie. It's just not executed very well. I don't think the script was in the right placement here. I mean, I'll give it to Michelle Pfeiffer and Dennis Haysbert. They're working off of each other really well, but it's a movie that also has kind of a tonal problem to it. They don't know if they want to be a serious drama or somewhat of a romantic comedy, but it can't really decide on which angle it wants to go with, and it just kind of falls apart pretty quickly, and it's just not very good. It's a movie that I think could have been a whole lot better, but what we got here just wasn't really all that enjoyable, so... yeah, that's Love Field. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Baz Luhrmann's Strictly Ballroom.
He had the world at his feet. He had the moves. Flashy, crowd-pleasing steps. He had the magic.
I keep asking myself why. Did I fail in this?
He had the music.
The pogo.
Tango, please.
The one thing he needed was a partner.
calm, Liz. Stay calm.
Piss off!
Liz!
I'm not dancing with you till you dance like you're supposed to.
I thought that what they danced was wonderful.
Hi, Liz. I thought you should quit.
That was unexpected.
What's wrong with me? What is so wrong with the way I dance?
I want to dance with you.
The run was the dance of love.
I want to dance with you your way.
Look at me like you're in love. That's it.
Now everything's theirs for the taking.
Well, you won't win if you don't have a partner. I'm dancing with Fran.
Fran? Fran?
All they have to do
You're a beginner, Fran. What the hell did you think you were doing?
is make the right move.
What the bloody hell's going on?
It's no use. I'll never be like them.
I don't want you to be like them.
That's the future of dance sport, and no one's gonna change that.
There's something in the air. It may be love, but it's not. Strictly ballroom.
This was the movie that introduced everybody to Baz Luhrmann. This was the movie that was the first part of his Red Curtain trilogy of theater motif-related films. The other two movies that would come after this would be William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet and Moulin Rouge. Honestly, when it comes to Baz Luhrmann, there are movies that I like of his, but I don't like a lot of his movies. There's just something about most of his movies that are just kind of like, I don't know what he's trying to go for. Like, for example, we just had Elvis at the time that this came out. Elvis opened up this year. I saw it, and I was just kind of like, I didn't think it was bad, but I didn't think it was that great either. I think the movie could have been something really enjoyable. An Elvis Presley biopic could have been really interesting and fun, but just the way the film handles it, like some of their attempts at comedy and their attempts at trying to be is a crowd-pleasing movie, that movie didn't really work out so well. And he's been known to have these type of movies, like Romeo and Juliet, I think, is one of those examples. Great Gatsby's one. Even though I really like Great Gatsby, I actually say that's probably one of my favorite films of his. Moulin Rouge, Australia. This movie I think is his best, is one of his strongest films overall. Like, I think in terms of story, in terms of good characters, in terms of good writing, good comedy, this is what I think of when I think of a really good, solid Baz Luhrmann film. It's a really solid film. The dancing overall is very well done. It's a wonderful film. It's a really great film. It's one of the strongest films. It's maybe the strongest film Luhrmann has done. Probably not my favorite one, but it's definitely the strongest film that overall he's made. And I think it's a really good film. If you haven't seen Strictly Ballroom, by all means check it out. You will not be disappointed by it. With that said, on to the last movie, and that is Peter Jackson's Dead Alive.
On this picturesque block, in this manicured home, something evil, something terrifying, something horrifying is haunting Rhino. His mother.
I thought I told you to spray this house. The place infested with vermin.
Although she was a little strict,
Look at this dust. It's an inch thick.
he never wished her any harm.
You look after me, Rhino.
Until
Your mother's dead, Lionel.
now, whatever Mom's got
Who's your mother?
has caught on with the neighbors.
You know what that
You can pray.
I kick ass for the law.
You can plead. You can beg for mercy.
Someone,
But nothing you can do will stop it. Because how do you kill something that's already dead? Trimark Pictures presents a modern masterpiece of horror.
Your mother, they my God!
Dead Alive.
Party's over.
So it's basically the New Zealand version of The Evil Dead, kind of. Sort of. I mean, you could definitely tell there's a lot of influence of Evil Dead here. And it's just it just looks like a ton of fun. This looks like a fun zombie comedy. It's As you can tell, I haven't seen it, but Peter Jackson, man, like, his early works are they're very interesting movies. Bad Taste, Meet the Feebles, and then this movie. And then after this, he became the Peter Jackson that we came to know, we kind of came to know with Heavenly Creatures. Kind of fell back here a little bit with The Frighteners, which, we'll get to that one. It's a very mixed bag of a movie. And of course, the Lord of the Rings movies, the Hobbit movies, King Kong, he's one of the great directors, and this is one of those movies that's just a ton of fun. It looks like a ton of fun, I should say. And I'm kind of curious to actually check it out one day. Maybe not now since Halloween has passed, but maybe next Halloween I'll definitely check it out. It's a movie that I am very curious to see for myself, but yeah, it just looks pretty promising all around. It looks very silly, it looks very over the top. It just looks like a ton of fun. It basically looks like a New Zealand version of The Evil Dead, and that's probably a good thing, because I like the Evil Dead movies a lot. And this movie's a ton of fun. Looks like a ton of fun. I keep saying is, like I've seen it. I haven't seen it yet. So, yeah. Dead Alive, or, as it's called back in New Zealand, Brain Dead.
In an age of darkness,
May God have mercy upon your souls. Something's wrong. Something's amiss.
at a time of evil,
You shall die!
when the world needed a hero,
The swallow us all. Everybody die!
what it got was him.
Groovy. Know your shoelaces untied.
He's a 20th century guy,
For that arrogance, I shall see you dead.
trapped in the Middle Ages.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. This is my boomstick.
Now, let's talk about how I get back home.
Foretold by a mystical book,
Within its pages are passages that can send you back to your time.
forewarned by a wise man.
You must recite the words Klaatu, Berata, Niktu.
I got it.
Fulfilled by a wise guy.
Batu, Brother.
When we spoke the words, the army of the dead awoke.
Now he's got a date
Give me some sugar, baby.
with the army of darkness.
You found me beautiful once.
Honey, you got real ugly.
Sound the trumpets. Raise the drawbridge. Drop the Oldsmobile. From Sam Raimi,
Oh, that's gonna hurt.
director of Darkman, comes Army of Darkness. They live. They breathe. They suck. Army of Darkness.
So yeah, Army of Darkness is one that's at first hotly contested because this is the third installment of the Evil Dead franchise, and you can pretty much tell that this is more going for a horror comedy type of feel than the other movies, which were horror movies, but they also had comedy in them, but were mostly horror movies. And Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 are classic movies, and at the time, a lot of people looked at Army of Darkness as kind of a disappointment because of the fact that they went strictly for more comedic setups, more than the horror aspect. But honestly, that's what kind of makes it so special. I don't think it's as good as some of the other movies were, but this is still a really fun movie. That trailer, I can always go back and watch that trailer all the time because there's just so many great moments in there that are in the movie, and it's Bruce Campbell, man. Bruce Campbell he just has the right attitude for this role. He is Ash Williams, and when he's on screen as that character, everything's just wonderful. Everything's coming up Millhouse, as you would say. But as you would say, what am I even saying? But you get the idea. Like every time that Ash Williams comes on screen, everything is just great. Like Bruce Campbell is just going to put in all the effort that he can, put in a great over-the-top but serious performance, and this movie does not disappoint on that level. Like, he is fantastic in this. He plays multiple roles in here. The comedy is brilliantly funny. It's so ridiculously stupid, but it's hilariously funny. The final action scene of the movie, where they're fighting the skeletons and Ash has got to face the evil version of himself, it's one of the funniest climaxes one of the funniest fights you will ever see. Like the way that Ash defeats this evil Ash is a moment that is so hilarious, so over the top, so insanely funny. You gotta watch it over and over again. Like, you gotta have the right mindset to really appreciate this movie. And it's just a ton of fun all around. Like, I love these characters that they have in here. I love the concept. The comedy is so funny. The action sequences are very fun. The horror aspects are pretty good too. The visuals are outstanding. Really, I will say it's not on the same level as Evil Dead 1 and 2, but it's still an incredibly fun movie. I love it a lot. It's a movie that, honestly, I go back to slightly more than I do with the other Evil Dead movies, even though I like those movies a lot better. This is the one that I usually watch a lot, specifically for the insane, over-the-top comedy that's in here. It's just an amazing movie all around. I can't really recommend this movie enough. Army of Darkness, just a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, if you're looking for some good, fun, over-the-top laughs, this movie is the perfect movie for you. Go ahead and check it out. You will not be disappointed by it by any means. So yeah, that's Army of Darkness. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is John Turturro in a movie that he wrote and directed as well, Mac.
Father taught them there are only two ways to do anything.
My way and the right way. And they are both the same.
One brother has all the answers.
You know what I think happiness is? To love your job. You hate your work. You hate your life.
The other two have all the questions.
We gotta get in a better predicament. Rome wasn't built in a day. Two brothers and a sheep.
Romulus and Remus.
That's the guys.
They don't see eye to eye.
But those guys got money. Money. We ain't got no money.
And they're taking it all to heart.
Didn't she want to start her own business?
Hey, who is better than us anyway?
Now they're putting the life that Dad built together again.
5,000. 8.
Did you know there was a cow farm here?
Piece by piece.
25,000. 30.
I know a good investment when I see one.
So you want to give it to me, huh?
Yes.
Brick by brick.
50,000. Sold. Also, there's some complications.
Because a dream worth having.
There's only two ways to do something, only two. The right way and my way. And they're both the same.
Is a dream worth fighting for.
Who wants to live our lives for you? It's over.
Get out! These are my houses!
And a dream worth building.
We put that me and my brothers out of the ground.
From the producer of Sex, Lies, and Videotape, and winner of the Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or Award. Written, directed, and starring John Turturro, and featuring Catherine Borowitz, John Amos, and Ellen Barkin. Mac.
So this is the first movie that John Turturro directed. He's actually directed some other movies of notability, including Romance and Cigarettes, Fading Gigolo. Most recently, he did the Big Lebowski spin-off film with his character from that movie in the Jesus Rolls, which I'm not really which, as much as I love the Big Lebowski, it's my favorite Coen Brothers film. I will say that the Jesus Rolls is not a very good movie overall, but we'll get to that one eventually down the road when we eventually get to 2019, which will be a while. But let's talk about this movie here, and really, I say let's talk about it, but I haven't seen it. I really didn't even know it even existed until I did the research on this. I didn't even know that John Turturro actually directed this movie, but it's a movie that looks pretty interesting. It looks like a very good film. I mean, John Turturro has proven before that he can be a really good director. I did really like Romance and Cigarettes, and this movie looks like it could be pretty good. It's got a really good cast: Michael Badalucco, Nicholas Turturro, Ellen Barkin, Dennis Farina, Mike Starr, just a lot of memorable names in here. So it could be a really good movie. Like I said, I haven't seen it. I can't really comment on it too much, but my interest is definitely piqued. So I am curious to check it out one day. Maybe not anytime soon, but one that I might definitely check out if I ever see it out in the open. So that's Mac. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Like Water for Chocolate.
In Tita's kitchen, ordinary spices become a recipe for passion in the magical movie critics are falling in love with. Like Water for Chocolate. An instant classic, erotic and delectable, scrumptious, sensual, and visually alluring. 2 thumbs up, way up. Prepare for a treat. the extraordinary new film by acclaimed director Alfonso Arau, Like Water for Chocolate, rated R.
Can I just say how hilarious it is to hear Winnie the Pooh talking about how this is one of the most erotic films ever made? That's Jim Cummings, by the way, a very prolific voice actor who, of course, has done the voice of Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, a ton of other great roles, Darkwing Duck, so many classic roles, but he's also a pretty good movie trailer announcer because he's done a number of these, but I just find that so hilarious that that's the voice of Tigger talking about this movie, and I mean, for all it's worth, it is a pretty damn good movie. I've seen this movie before. It's a really good film. Was at the time it was the highest grossing foreign language film ever before movies like The Postman beat it 3 years later, and of course other movies have done it since then. Like, I'm looking at the list here: Fearless from Jet Li, Amelie, Pan's Labyrinth, Instructions Not Included, Parasite, Hero, Life is Beautiful, and of course Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But yeah, as far as the movie itself goes, it is a well-made film. It's a wonderfully made film, some great visuals to it, some wonderful characters you can relate to and be invested in. It's a beautiful-looking movie. This director, Alfonso Arau, has made some pretty decent films over the years, and after this, he made a pretty good-looking film with A Walk in the Clouds with Keanu Reeves in it. He also did the Magnificent Ambersons remake in 2002. He's a pretty good director, and he makes a pretty looking movie. It's a very visually stunning looking movie on so many levels. It's a really enjoyable film. I'm glad I saw it a couple years ago. I really liked it a lot. If you haven't seen Like Water for Chocolate, definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed by that one. With that said, on to the last movie that we have here, and that is The Judas Project.
Madness and despair.
Receive the light.
A man of true greatness gave his life to save humanity. The man was the Son of God. The time is now.
I could promote you, turn you into something wonderful. I know who he is.
Saying you are God.
I've come to help to bring light into a world that you are destroying.
You don't expect me to believe a dead guy just gets up and walks away.
I have the power to save or destroy you. Make sure he dies.
Not for 30 pieces of silver.
So yeah, that's a movie that exists. This was released in February of '93 by Good Times Entertainment, the company that's been notoriously known for releasing those terrible animated Disney knockoff movies. You know the ones I'm talking about, the ones that your grandmother used to get you because she thought it was actually the Disney movie, but it was the cheap knockoff version. That same studio actually put this out, and they didn't do a whole lot of theatrical releases during the time period, and when they did, the end result was not usually very good. I think the only other one that I know came out in theaters was the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie in '98, and that movie didn't do very well and has been largely forgotten. But this movie here, this is a movie that basically shows a fictional retelling of the story of Jesus if it had occurred in the late 20th century, which is not a bad idea. It could be a very interesting concept, but not with the way that this movie looks. This movie does not look like it's anything all that interesting or exciting. They just made it looks like they made this movie just to cash in on the Christian movie audience that wasn't really there at the time this came out. But of course nowadays they make these movies for mostly the faith-based audiences, and they've proven to be successful. And but this movie came out way before then, and I think a lot of people really noticed it right away. And I don't know if I said this before, but this came out. This was actually made in 1990. It sat on a shelf for 3 years, so that should pretty much tell you what this movie is basically going to be. And it does not look very good. It has an interesting concept that maybe could be interesting under the right director or screenwriter or cast, but not with this movie. This movie does not look like it's any good whatsoever. So there you go. That's pretty much all I can say about this movie. It looks pretty bad. The Judas Project.
Bill Foster is an ordinary man.
Where you going?
Going home.
Not this way, you're not.
Why not?
Metro Rail Construction, that's why not.
Living in the everyday world.
I don't suppose you have a couple of bucks you can give me. It would really help me out. If you give me your address, I'll mail it back, honest.
A patient man.
Can I help you?
Yes, I'd like a ham and cheese omelet, wham fries.
I'm sorry.
We stopped serving breakfast at 11:30.
Who's running out of patience.
I guess some change for the phones.
A peaceful man.
No change. Have to buy something.
Who's about to be pushed.
85 cents. 85 cents. Hasn't given me enough money for the phone call. Drink. 85 cents. You paid? Go.
A little too far.
I stay.
I mean, you stole your baseball bat, but he paid for the soda.
Just standing up for my rights. As a consumer.
Oh, this guy's discriminating.
What kind of vigilante are you? I'm just trying to get home to my little girl's birthday. Give us your briefcase. If everybody will stay out of my way. Here, you want a briefcase? Here's my briefcase! Oh, where's the briefcase, huh? Wait a minute, then nobody will get hurt.
Warner Brothers presents
Say, would you get off my golf course? Yeah.
the story of an everyday guy who refused to take it one more day.
Sir, we got a nutcase with a bag full of guns. He's in Hollywood right now, and he's heading west.
I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's other people waiting to use the phone here.
Now, if you go up against this guy, be careful.
I think it's out of order.
Somebody in a white shirt and tie gunned down a phone with 3 blocks from the Whammy Burger.
Michael Douglas.
In America, we have the freedom of speech. Come on, I want to be a part of it. I'll buy a ticket. The right to disagree.
Robert Duvall.
I know who this guy is.
In a Joel Schumacher film.
What are you doing to the street? We're fixing it. What the hell does it look like? See, I don't think anything's wrong with the street. I think you're just trying to justify your inflated budgets. Well, I guess so. I'll give you something to fix. What are you... Hey, Charlie!
Falling down.
Let's call it a day. Come on. I'm the bad guy?
A tale of urban reality.
Good luck trying to remake this movie in 2022. Yeah, 30 years after this movie came out, this movie becomes a little more to talk about because of everything that has happened in the world since then. But, I mean, at least in my opinion, I really like this movie. But I like it as kind of a it's weird. It's going to sound crazy. It's terrible for me to say this, but I like this as kind of a fantasy. Like the basic premise of this movie is Michael Douglas is this guy who's just having a terrible, terrible day, and then just all these things keep happening to him, and he just gets pushed to an extreme level, and he just goes off on this incredibly violent rampage, and it's you would never do this in real life, but I don't know, like, we've all been in this kind of situation before, but we've never been in this situation that goes to this extreme of a level. And this movie, I think this movie really is one of those movies where you look at it and you gotta think to yourself, like, this cannot happen in real life. In movie world, you could buy into this. This is kind of like a modern day version of Death Wish, kind of, except instead of Charles Bronson actually doing his job to save the day, this guy's doing it just because that he's just so fed up with the world. And like I said before, a lot of people I think can relate to William Foster in this movie. He's just has all these things that are just get on his nerves, just pushes him to these other levels that he could snap at any moment, and he snaps in this movie. And it's just like it's hard to talk about this movie because of how the world has become in the 30 years since then, but I still really like this movie a lot. I like it because Michael Douglas just sells this role, and honestly, I think a normal person can relate to this situation, but a person with a smart brain and the fact that they don't have any violent tendencies knows that to never ever do this in real life, because you will probably get killed right away and not even get shot or even get sent to jail. Because, I mean, you see me stumbling here because it's really hard to talk about this movie nowadays, especially since the way the world has gone since this movie in the 30 years since this movie came out. And like I said before, it would be hard to remake this movie in modern times. Like, I really don't think you could even remake this movie in modern times, but as you take it as a movie as it is, it's a very good movie. Like, Michael Douglas really sells this performance, and like I said, you feel for this character. Like, it's like I said before, it's kind of a fantasy type of situation where, like, you would want to do this, but at the same time, you have to have common sense to not do this in real life because, obviously, of the circumstances that are involved. And you got a great performance by Robert Duvall in here as the cop that's on a day of his retirement, who's basically coming back in to stop this guy from going crazy. And it's kind of a fun black comedy too. Like, there are those scenes in the trailer you see, they do lead to a lot of really funny, over the top gonzo moments, and it's hard for me to really delve into this movie, considering the plot itself and how it still kind of remains a timeless movie considering everything that's happened in the decades since then. But I mean, like I said before, you take this movie as a fantasy, take it as a piece of fiction, and it's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun in a black comedy thriller type of way. But yeah, bottom line, don't ever do this in real life. But if you want to see one of Michael Douglas's best performances ever, this is definitely the movie I'd recommend, because Falling Down's a pretty damn good movie, and hey, one of Joel Schumacher's best movies too. So I could go into more, but I'll just leave it there, and I'll let you guys delve into what you thought about this movie, because I mean, I think I've pretty much said everything I need to say right now about it. But anyway, that's Falling Down. And with that said, let's go ahead and get off that movie and go to the next movie that we have here, and that is Robert Rodriguez's directorial debut, El Mariachi.
In 1991, Columbia Pictures introduced you to an extraordinary new filmmaker and an unforgettable new vision. The director was 23-year-old John Singleton. The film, Boys in the Hood. Now, Columbia Pictures is proud to present a remarkable new film from another extraordinary new talent. The director is 23-year-old Robert Rodriguez. The film, El Mariachi.
So this was the movie that introduced the world to Robert Rodriguez, as you hear in the trailer. Columbia Pictures put this out 2 years ago. They put out the first movie by John Singleton, Boys in the Hood, and that became a classic movie. And this movie became a classic movie as well, and went on to have a loyal cult following to the point where Sony actually made this into a franchise with Desperado coming out a couple years later, and then 8 years after that we got Once Upon a Time in Mexico. And while this movie definitely is the weakest of the three movies, I think, it's still a very, very good movie. Like the fact that Rodriguez put only about $7,000 into this movie, and it turned out into this beautiful looking film, a visually stunning looking film, and a film that really works because you get invested with these characters. This is a story that's been done over and over again. It's nothing new, it's nothing exciting, but just the way it's shot, the way the action sequences pan out, the way the visuals play out, the way the acting works, you can't help but really be impressed by what what Robert Rodriguez has done here. It's an incredibly made film, a fantastic film overall. It's a film that I can't recommend enough. Go see El Mariachi, especially if you're a big fan of Robert Rodriguez's work. See the film that made him into a superstar. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and the last movie, I should say, and that is the documentary Visions of Light.
His face, with this phenomenon happening on the windows, happened to hit his face one time when I was looking. So I went to Richard, and I said, Richard, watch this on his face now, you know what I mean? And we did another rehearsal, and you can see the water running down, and it drips around. And he's talking about his father, and it's very sad he's going to be hanged, but he's playing it very straight, unemotional. And the visuals were crying for him.
Okay, so I couldn't find a trailer. I had to take a little clip from the Cisco and Ebert review for this. Basically, this is a documentary talking about the art of cinematography, talking about the concept of cinema at the turn of the 20th century, and you have these different filmmakers and cinematographers talking about their views and discussing why the art of cinematography is important within the craft of filmsmanship. And you see some notable names in here, including Michael Chapman, Ernest Dickerson, Conrad Hall, Caleb Deschanel. Looking at the list here, John A. Alonzo, Victor J. Kempa, Vittorio Sotaro, Gordon Willis, just a lot of names here, and these filmmakers talk about these films. They go all the way back to films of the late 1800s, stuff like the 1925 Ben-Hur, The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, The Magnificent Amberson, Citizen Kane, a lot of Alfred Hitchcock movies, all the way up to films like Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas and Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. It just looks like a movie that really honestly could be remade today with some of the cinematographers that we've had since then. I would like to hear some stuff from people like Roger Deakins, even some guys that have become filmmakers of their own. Barry Sonnenfeld, John DeBont, Andre Bartkowiak. There's some other names I'm trying to think of. Give me 1 second here. Of course, Janusz Kaminski, Larry Fong, Emmanuel Lubezki, Matthew Libatique, Wally Pfister. There's so many names that you could put into this list that probably would make for a really solid remake of this series if they get more people to do this. But it looks like it could be a pretty good documentary to see. I like this idea of hearing these filmmakers talking about their craft and how they're able to establish these shots and all that. I think it could be something that could be very much worth watching one day, and I might do that just once. And like I said before, this could be something that they could eventually do a remake of, or at least a continuation of, to hear these modern day cinematographers and filmmakers talk about their craft and all that. And it could be a ton of fun. So that's pretty much all I got to say about Visions of Light.